Nelson Stewart, the excellent head coach of Newman High School, joins us now. Nelson, listen, we appreciate your time this morning, as always, and I hope you're well.
Great to hear from you guys. Yeah, doing well. We're back at it, just like everybody else. Really fortunate to have such a great support system with our staff, and just staying socially distant, minimizing our numbers, and really just going as fast as we can, just playing catch up. But it's been great getting back out there, and you just said it. We can only control what we can control. But I was fortunate to be on a committee that got to work with Mr. Bonine, and I do have confidence in this plan that it's the most effective way possible in the fall. And just looking forward to October 8th and hopefully getting out there.
So the plans that were fostered as a result of the conversations this past week that Mr. Bonine told us all about were simple. And, of course, I've had Eric Held on the show as well. A 6-game, a 7-game, or an 8-game regular season, followed by playoffs, which would be dictated by how long the regular season was. If, in fact, the regular season was maxed out at 8 games, the playoffs would have to be reduced by a round based upon the time frame in place whereby the season would end the last week of December. If 7 games, you have a little leeway. If it's 6 games, you could actually try to keep it pretty much on time with the way it's supposed to unfold right now. Given those scenarios, which one would you prefer?
To be honest with you, I think you want the most games possible for your kids, guaranteed. I think the 8-game schedule for me, only because I think that, even in, our system last year on the select side, we even got a bye in the first round. And not that it was a round that wasn't worth playing. It was a situation where, you want as many games possible for your kids. And if we got to go a little longer, that's fine. I know Mr. Bonine has talked to the Superdome, and he's looked at that scenario. But again, for me, I think 8 would be great. 7's fine. Yeah, 6 a little short for us, but you get away. As we told the kids the other day, no spring football, no summer 7-on-7. We'll take what we can get. So I would love 8 games. I don't mind going even into January personally. If we can do that, and obviously have minimal crossover. But again, Eric Helt's done a fantastic job. I was able to communicate with him, with a few coaches. I think for us, we all said, 7 games was pretty much the, minimum for we thought would be a successful season. So I guess 7 will be good as well. But I know we're all trying to get to the same place.
Ed?
What is your level of confidence that it's going to happen, Nelson?
Well, I think right now I'm confident we're doing everything possible to play. And I do think if we can flatten this thing out, I think the numbers are a little bit better. And I did like some of the guidelines I saw. I think, distancing on the sideline, masking, and some of the things that the LHSA just released. I think you want to, number one, be as safe as possible for our student athletes. I think everybody agrees that. And, I have to be confident. I just can't imagine a fall without football. But I do think it's going to require a lot of care, a lot of research. I can tell you even in our first week, it took us 1 or 2 times to really get it where we were comfortable entering practice, exiting practice, how our stretch lines worked, individual drills, limiting contact, as best we could. And, I think I do have confidence just because there's been so much research in this. We've talked about this for months. There were so many different scenarios. So, I'm confident we can have football, but we all got to, do our part, to distance when we're off the field, mask up, and flatten it out to where there could be some sort of normalcy and get out there.
So I know that, the kind of worst-case scenario is you have a bunch of guys test positive. Coach, if somebody's out for 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, what does that do to PowerPoints? What does that do to the whole playoff hierarchy if you have something like that happen?
Well, I think that's why you really have to, work hard developing your 1s and your 2s. I think that, that's one of those scenarios where nobody's immune to it. And, I think for us, I think it, for any school really, it could be devastating just because, you have, 2 or 3, elite players, one gets it. Some of those times you can't replace it. So I think that's why it's so important when you get in your locker rooms and you clean it out, you follow the protocols. That's why you have to be so careful because it can, spread so rampantly. And I do think there are good ways to do it, to prevent it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's that's a $1 million question. I think, how do you do that? I think separate your pods as much as possible in practice, to where you don't want to lose 10, 15 guys. I think that's what we all want to avoid when you couldn't even field a team out there. So I think from a PowerPoint perspective, that there's a great unknown there. So you can have as many as you want in terms of talent and players and guys coming back, but if you're not careful with protocols and you don't do the things necessary, it can just be gone so fast.
So would you, like on the schedule, Coach,
Mm-hmm.
would you maybe, knowing that you had a big game coming up and you were worried about the possibility of anybody testing positive, would that affect how you practice during the week, your Thursday walkthrough, any of that stuff to limit guys and their exposure, so you can just get to Friday intact?
Well, I think you have to do that every week. I think, just as you said, I can tell you right now, we're running 2 practices just because of numbers and, protocols. And, we're running one with our young guys and one with our old guys, and, more structured breaks and distancing and whatnot. And I think you just have to practice as careful as possible. And I think you have to do that every week. We tried to, really teach in new ways. You hear about Zoom. I think I've, Zoomed Arch Manning as much as I've seen him, in the regular season, in terms of just looking at film and looking at, we've done positional meetings. I think teach as much virtually as you can. Not just that. I think our team has done that. Our offensive line coach, our defensive staff's been outstanding with just, reteaching the game of football. And we have to continue to do that. So I think you want to, be as effective as you can time management wise on the field, but use every possible way to coach our student athletes, just as you said, to, minimize contact. Can't get in those small meeting rooms like you used to, and just be as safe as you can, but as effective as you can as well.
Visiting with Nelson Stewart, the head coach of the Newman Greenies, 260-1061 to join us. You mentioned Arch. How has he grown, I guess, first of all, physically, and then secondly, mentally as well, as a quarterback entering his sophomore year?
He's really been great. And I think when you talk about it, I think from a physical standpoint, last year, I think he was, a little under, 6'1", about 165, 170 pounds. Right now he's standing almost 6'3". He's 198 pounds. That's what he was the other day. Very strong. He's as fast, if not faster. He's worked very hard in the weight room. He's a gym rat. He loves to work out. I think that was fortunate that, he was able to do some things on his own. The pandemic didn't slow him down on that. And I think from a mental standpoint, that's been the biggest surprise is how much, he loves football. He loves to meet. He loves to, when we Zoom, not just talk about, the structure of a play, but what is the structure of a defense and who the Mike linebacker is and what a coverage looks like. And he wants to compete and learn. We went through every play of every game and really broke things down. And, things are really moving a lot faster for him. Last year where we were huddling and going slower, in the pandemic, I joke you can huddle if you get out and you go on air. And, we're just going so much faster. His processing speed's quicker. And, he continues to stay humble. He's been a great teammate. I think, just like any quarterback that's fairly good, he just wants to get better every day. And, it's not about the completions, about the incompletions. He'll stay if there's a drop, and you don't end up practice on an incompletion. His attention to detail has been good, and he's certainly done everything we've asked of him and more. And he's a completely different quarterback, and I sure hope we get to see him play this season because he's awful special.
Coach, would it be safe to say that he was going a little bit stir crazy about not being able to practice?
I think you're pretty safe to say that. I think that he's very tireless. I think he was very creative, when he worked out and what he did. But that's why we just, really, he and all of our kids. I think that when you're cooped up so long and you can't get out, can't see your friends, it's very hard. So I think that's been the biggest thing for us as coaches is to try and stimulate as much growth as we can, interact with these kids. And he, like everybody else, it's really hard when there was no spring football. There was obviously no, he didn't have any of the 7-on-7s, which is, really has been so good, good for us building. He's just been able to work on his own. But I think as you look across the state and the country, it's been really hard on these young kids to find, find those things and those outlets that they have. And that's why the season is so important for these guys as we look forward.
Nelson, you have some key losses, obviously, to graduation, but you have some good players coming back who were contributors last year in a lot of places. Plus, you have a young man I know about that's awfully talented, and A.J. Johnson, who didn't play last year. Talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, no, A.J., he's very special. He came to us and, as a freshman, after his freshman season, he sat out, this year. And again, another guy that's really just grown so much physically. Right now, he's, again, one of those guys almost 200 pounds. He runs probably a 4.5 40, high points the ball well. He's very explosive. He's certainly a Power 5 wideout. I don't usually get into offers and stuff, but he does hold offers from Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, a number of universities. He certainly is explosive a wide receiver as we've had it some time. I think Jermone Sutherland was our most valuable player. He's irreplaceable. He's going to do phenomenal at Dartmouth. We're just so fortunate we have AJ, and we have another young man that was in Ellisville last year, and Mekhi Donaldson. Mekhi's only going to be a sophomore, but really tall, almost 6'4", 200 pounds. Again, really has worked hard on his route running. He catches the ball well. Both of our slots return, and John Charbonnet and Pike Philibert, they find grass. They catch everything you throw at them. We have a big tight end who's also returning, and Will Randall, our running backs returning, and Joseph Pleasant. We have, 3 of the 5 up front are back for us, and we're able to really excited, have a new lineman and Bo Bordelon, who is about 6'3", 250 pounds, left tackle, just looks great in terms of his footwork and his drive. And we're really excited about our chances on offense. And, it's hard to highlight one player, but we can have those pieces together. Certainly we think we have a good chance to compete. And even on air, man, they move fast, they're effective, and they're just doing great as a unit.
I don't know about you, Ed, but I'm listening to that. I'm just thinking that if the coach doesn't screw it up, I mean, obviously they should never lose a game, and they should win a state championship. That's what I'm hearing, Ed. Is that what you heard?
I heard 3 in a row. That's what I heard.
Oh, somebody sounds like Frank Monica right now.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. Right. Why I have you here? Are you going to play any Thursday games? Or are you going to play on Friday?
The only reason, Ed, is last year we moved was because Coach Monica did request it, because I'm a Friday night kind of guy, and I would never want to work away from that. If we do, it will definitely be outside of my control, but we want to avoid those Thursdays as much as we can.
Very good. I like the Friday games, Coach.
Yes, sir.
For a certain reason.
What about your defense, Nelson? All you do is talk about offense. You're old offensive dude. What about defense? Do you have a defense? Do you know what a defense is? Do you know how you're supposed to line up?
Well, that's actually, to be honest with you, that's been one of the things for me is we have such a great defensive staff. Our defensive coordinator, Dustin Knopfnagel, Steve Victory, Kevin Milton. They really have really blown me away, because I think that, in our league, you talk about offense, but last year, and I think our defense was fantastic. I think that, especially against Country Day, limiting them 13 points, and played the run well, very multiple. I think up front, our interior comes back intact, and Ramaj Waiters and Joshua Capel. We have great defensive ends, Walker Reynolds, Evan Cloche, number of guys, also Bo Bordelon. Our linebackers run very well. Will Hardy, who was our top tackler returns, who's also an all-state kicker, with Brandon McGowan, William Hewitt. They're running really well. And our secondary, it's hard to even list starters. We have guys all over the place with, both corners back. We also have a young man, Christopher Hunter, who's really our 5th wide receiver, also plays in the secondary. Penn McKay is one. Terrence Williams, Thomas Kerrigan, Kit Bachman. Steve Victory's done a great job. And, their feet are so fast. They're effective. Our defensive practices have just been phenomenal to watch, whereas, I think offensively, you look at the chemistry trying to work together. Defense is just rolling. Their drills, everything they do, I think in terms of their effectiveness, their coverages, we can't throw 7-on-7, but I can assure you if we had to throw it, we'd have a hard time. So, no, I think a lot of times is, you joke, you do talk about offense, and, we're fortunate with Arch and some of our wide receivers. You can't win without, playing great defense. And I am so blessed and so pleased with the work of our defense. And they've looked great so far. We're going to continue to, run to the football, tackle well, good attention to detail. And in our league, you can't just outscore people like with the likes of St. Charles and Notre Dame and LCA and Dunham. You got to play great defense. So, yeah, I joke, like to talk about offense, but trust me, our defense is just as important, if not much more so.
Coach, I'm watching this NBA restart, and it's amazing to me how some teams come back and they're ready to go, and some teams come back and they don't look like anything like the team they were before the season was suspended in March. What are you doing? What can you do to keep you guys edgy as you're really waiting almost another exactly 2 months before you play a game? What do you do?
Well, I tell you what, that's one of the things that, I've talked to so many coaches across the area, kind of bounced ideas off back and forth on that. And the first thing is I think we're fortunate that our staff, is mostly returning intact so that we can continue our same methods of coaching. And I think you got to be as innovative as possible. You can't just show up for those 45 minutes. I mean, we use our Zooms, like I said, use our huddle to message and communicate, and just be incredibly detailed. I think the other thing is, start at the bottom of the foundation. I mean, you have to go back to, how to properly take a handoff, your line splits, the base, your quick game as you build a big routes. I think our defense has just been outstanding in terms of reintroducing coverages and not just throwing every single thing in the book. I think Coach Nothnagle's been just great at designing coverages that our kids can understand, they can execute. And really, we're going to grow as they grow. I think that's it. We want to just, play great football. I think the biggest thing is not turning the ball over, not asking more of these kids than they're able to right now. And, we got time to do it. In a lot of cases, I think you can, as I talked to Mark Bonise about this, be creative with your practices. It's not going to be 5 days the same thing for 6-7 weeks. I think you have to, lay your days with special teams some days and speed, agility, and whatnot, and keep the kids fresh mentally. So it's definitely a tough task. It's not easy, and I think that's why we plan every week, 1 week at a time, just so we can monitor the kids. So we do our best with that, but I think that will be something across the state that will be very interesting to see.
Do you feel for coaches who are in their first year with a new team and a new staff?
Actually, my first year, ironically, as a head coach was post-Katrina. And I remember one of the biggest things that helped me when I came in my first year was I had such a great staff around me of guys that had coached me and older coaches that helped give me guidance and whatnot. And I think in those situations, that would be very hard. But I think a lot of young coaches know that you have to have great assistants. I think as a head coach, and while we're the ones that, oftentimes, are doing the interviews and talking, you have to have a great support staff and collaborate. I think that's why it's so important that you have experience on your staff and guys that have been through adversity and people to lean on. I think as a first-year head coach, that would be the most important thing would be, having, veterans you can collaborate with and talk to. I think absolutely, because now there's no scrimmage, there's no jamboree, you didn't have spring. So there's going to be a steep learning curve. And you may see some, young programs, starting off a little slow, but they may pick up later. So, yeah, I think without question, I think in my situations, obviously experience helps, but you just hope they have a really good support staff around them.
He is Nelson Stewart, the head coach of the Newman Greenies. Nelson, it's great to talk to you again, and we always appreciate your cooperation and wish you nothing but the best. And more than anything else, just hope that these young men, and for that matter, all student athletes on campus, get a chance to compete in this school year at some point.
Amen to that. And, again, I appreciate you guys continuing to keep the sport out there. As I echo the words I once heard Archie Manning said, I think there are no two individuals that do more for high school sports and prep football than you all. And, we're going to do everything we can to get out there. And we hope and pray that, we'll be turning on Friday Night Football after games and getting ready to go and just getting ready for 2020. I thank you all so much.
All right, Coach. Look forward to it.
All right,
buddy.
Coach. Thank you, Nelson.
Right.
Take
Thank
care
you,
of
guys.
yourself.
Appreciate you.
All right, Coach Nelson Stewart of Newman. It's 260-10.